Ma'am, raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you should give the court in the trial of this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. State your full name for the record and spell your last name, please.
All right. My name is Christina Wheeler. Last name is Wheeler.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Wheeler.
Good morning.
Ms. Wheeler, with whom are you employed?
Berkeley County EMS.
Okay. And back in May of 2015, were you employed
Yes,
same
ma'am.
place? Okay. And what is your role with Berkeley County EMS?
I was a paramedic.
Okay.
On one of the trucks, I ran a crew on an ambulance.
All right. And what was your background and training prior to being a paramedic?
Prior to being a paramedic, I managed a gas station.
Okay. But in terms of becoming a paramedic, did you have some training?
Yes, 2 years at Trident Technical College, where I got my associate's degree in paramedicine.
Okay.
And I became a nationally registered paramedic after that.
All right. And in May of 2015, how long had you been a paramedic?
I graduated from school in May 2011,
So approximately 4 years?
thereabouts.
And on May 20th, 2015, did you and your partner respond to 2206 North Main Street in Somerville?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what type of call you were responding to?
It come out as a full arrest, and while en route, they informed us that it was a possible suicide. The manner was by hanging.
And do you remember what time you arrived on scene?
It was approximately 1956, or 1916. My apologies.
All right, 1916?
1916.
And that would be 716.
Well, actually, hold up. Rewind. 1916 was when we were en route. 1921 was when we got there, so we were about 4 minutes out from there.
All right. So about how far away were you when you got the call?
We were leaving the hospital in North Charleston, and I believe we were leaving Trident. We were passing by the area, so we were the closest unit to respond. So we ended up, that explains the short response time.
And what's your partner's name?
Jenny Radizak.
So, just for clarity purposes, about how long did it take for you to get to the scene once you got the call?
About 5 minutes.
And when you arrived, do you remember what the weather was like?
It was clear. It was warm. It was afternoon.
Was it daylight?
Yeah.
Was it raining?
No.
Now, as part of your training, are you trained to assess the scene?
Yes, ma'am. We are trained to assess a scene as we arrive, what we see, any dangers that could affect us taking care of a patient for ourselves as well as the crew, and as well as making sure the patient's also safety is taken into consideration.
And did you do that on the evening of May 20, 2015 on this call?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you tell the jury what you observed?
When we pulled into a driveway and we parked behind a vehicle. The vehicle was parked right prior to a gate, and on the other side of the gate was the first responders were coming to me, and I could see the patient laying on the ground by the fence closest to the building.
And could you elaborate on what you remember about the fence? What type of fence?
It was a chain link fence. I would say not even barely 6 feet tall, if that. It, like I said, regular chain link fence that had the post up against the wall, and then it ran up this way. It had doors to where you could drive a vehicle through it, and then it completed itself off to the other side and around back.
Okay, and you said there was a vehicle there. Do you remember where the vehicle was located that you're referencing?
The vehicle was parked facing towards the open gate, like it could have drove into the back around the building, and there was nobody in the vehicle when we arrived.
Right. And if you were seated in that vehicle, would you be able to clearly see that fence?
Yes.
Do you have any recollection of the height of the fence, approximately?
Like I said, it could have been 6 feet.
Okay. Do you remember if there was a hose on the fence?
There was a green hose that it was not hooked to any water, so it was like a limp hose, I guess is the best way to explain it.
Okay. And As far as the victim, did you provide aid to the victim?
Prior to our arrival per company 2 over the radio, they had said that it was a possible 7-9, which is what we call deceased. Therefore, we weren't going to exactly work her, but we still had made plans to, upon arrival, when we got there. They informed us again of that while we arrived on scene. We still grabbed the monitor, went over, attached the monitor, confirmed asystole in 3 leads.
What does that mean?
That means we placed the electrodes on the patient and the monitor read the flat line.
And what does flatline mean?
There's no heartbeat, and that is not a shockable rhythm. Therefore, we could not deliver any shocks. Also palpated for pulses. No pulses were noted via the carotid at the neck or the radial at the wrist.
And how did the victim appear visually to you?
Visually, she was blue around the lips, blue to purple. Somewhat cold to the touch. Her fingers as well were blue.
Okay.
She had abrasions on her knees, and she was missing a shoe.
Was she cyanotic?
Yes.
And could you explain what that means?
Cyanotic means that there is no oxygenated blood running through the body, therefore you're not pink. You tend to lose color, hence the purple to blue at the extremities is where you'll see the cyanosis initially.
Okay. And going back to the hose for a minute, I believe you said it was green. Is it possible that it was black?
Questions form the questions.
I haven't heard the whole question. Complete the question.
Is it possible it was black?
Could have been.
Okay, thank you. Do you remember anything about how the hose was positioned on the fence?
It was just kind of thrown up there, like in a rolled fashion. There wasn't no rhyme or reason to it.
Do you recall the victim's body in relation to the fence when you got there?
The fence sat right about here, the building here. The right side of her body was touching the building with her right hand palm up, left hand was palm down. Her legs were, she was positioned this way and her legs were out. But she was like up against the fence, kind of like how you take a corner and the body was just kind of like right there.
Okay. Is that a normal position for giving CPR?
No.
Who was on scene when you got there?
Company 2, Fire Department, Pine Ridge. I believe Chris Lewis and Joe Edlin.
And to your knowledge, had anyone moved the body prior to your arrival?
No, ma'am.
And did you or your partner move or adjust the
No.
body? Other than putting on the leads? and
Yes.
What we discussed. Okay. And while we're talking about moving, to your knowledge, did anyone move the vehicle?
Nobody moved the vehicle. As far as my knowledge was concerned, like I said, we pulled up, the vehicle was right there.
All right. Did you see the defendant, the person who called 911 there upon your arrival?
I saw a gentleman
Okay.
walking around, but like I said, when we first get on scene, I'm more concerned with everything else, trying to figure everybody out, and he was just there. I like always, I know that eventually I'll figure out who that person was, and we did.
And you did figure out who it was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And who did you learn it to be?
Michael Colucci.
Okay. Can you describe his demeanor, what you remember?
He was very distraught, visibly upset.
Okay. Was he crying, do you remember?
On and off.
Okay. Do you recall his physical appearance in terms of any injuries?
I remembered that when he grabbed his face, he had abrasions on his knuckles.
Okay. Anything else that you can remember?
No.
When you interacted with him, did he tell you what had happened?
When we had sat down, generally when we do calls, we need to get information on the patients, otherwise known as demographics. With nobody being on the scene except for her husband, we went to him, let him take a moment, and asked him for some information, like her name, date of birth, any medical history that he knew of, or anything. In that conversation, he would say that he just can't lose her. Like I said, he was visibly upset. He explained that they had been on the way to, they were riding around in the car, and they ended up going to a cemetery, I believe, where her prior husband, her deceased husband, was buried. She was upset about something to do with somebody being buried near him. They ended up passing by the place where they were at, which we ended up finding out that that was a storage place. And he parked there, and he was still talking with her. He said he sang 2 songs to her. When he came back, he found her, and he said she was hanging. And he then told us he pulled her down in an attempt to save her and called 911.
Okay. And did you ever see her hanging?
No, she was on the ground upon our arrival.
Ms. Wheeler, if you would, just look at States 5. Does that look like what you recall of the scene that night, minus, of course, the victim and all the first responders?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And referencing States 32. Ms. Wheeler, does that look as the victim did when you found her? Are there any differences then that would be in that picture versus when you found her?
No, there's no
That's her-
differences other than the first responders aren't there.
Okay. So that's her position and how you found her?
Yes, ma'am.
And the blue marks we see on her, what are those?
The blue marks, that's the cyanosis.
The little blue dots?
Those are the electrodes where we place the monitor. Those you attach the leads there, and that's how you get an electrical reading of the heart.
Okay. And showing States 33, and I'm just pointing, are these the abrasions that you're referencing on her knee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And again, this is this accurate to what you saw the victim's position?
Yes.
Beg the court's indulgence. That's all we have on direct, Your Honor.
Any questions for the witness?
No questions.
Any objection to the witness being excused from the state,
Not from the state, Your
from the
Honor.
defense? Any objection? Ma'am, you're excused.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Haley Kwong.
Ma'am, raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you should give the court in the trial of this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. State your full name for the record and spell your last name, please.
First name's Haley, last name Nelson, N-E-L-S-O-N.
Spell your first name, please.
H-A-L-E-Y.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Morning.
If you would tell everyone with whom you are employed.
I'm currently employed at the South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, commonly known as SLED.
And what is your title?
I am currently assigned to the Behavioral Science Unit as a special agent.
So special agent is your current title?
Yes.
Okay. And were you employed with SLED in May of 2000, or let's just say summer of 2016?
Yes.
All right. And were you in the same unit?
No, I was not. I was assigned to the crime scene unit.
Okay. And actually, let me go ahead and take that back one more year. Were you also there in 2015?
Yes.
All right. And I referred to you as Quam previously. Is that a prior name for you?
Yes. That's
Okay.
my maiden name,
All
which
right.
is Q-U-A-M.
Thank you. And you prefer Nelson now?
Yes.
All right, understandable. All right, so Agent Nelson, back in 2015 and 16, what were your duties in your position with SLED?
Well, I started out at SLED in the crime scene unit in October of 2012. SLED is an assisting agency, so in the crime scene unit, if a state, local, or federal agency needed assistance for crime scenes, they would call us. We'd respond out, collect evidence, document the scene, and transport it back to the laboratory in Columbia, where we'd log it in and send it to other departments for further analysis.
All right. And were you asked by Special Agent Owen for assistance on this particular case?
I was.
Okay. In that role that you had with SLED and crime scene?
Correct.
Okay. As part of your role on this case, did you review some materials in the file?
I did.
And did that include reports and photos?
Yes, I reviewed. Special Agent Owen provided the crime scene photographs, the incident reports, autopsy reports, all the documentation in the case file that he had at the moment.
And did you actually take a visit to the incident location with Agent Owen?
We did.
And was Dr. Tormos, the pathologist, present at that?
She was.
Okay. And while you were there, did you take a measurement between the measurement of the distance from the chain link fence to the building?
We did.
How did you take that measurement?
We took it with a measuring stick so we could get a photograph with it as well.
All right. And did you do that yourself?
Myself, as well as Special Agent Jamie Johnson, Special Agent Gabriel Denizard, who are also in the crime scene unit, responded with me to the scene and assisted. So we were all doing this as a joint effort. One was holding the measuring stick while another was taking a photograph.
And you, what was the distance? What did you find?
It was approximately 8 inches.
Okay. As part of your role in revisiting the incident location, did you take any scans of the property?
Yes, so when we responded to the scene, we took additional photographs as well as the measurements, and then we have something called a Faro scanner, which is a 3D laser scanner that we use just for additional documentation.
All right. And is it fair to say, with your review of this file, you questioned whether the hose was the ligature?
I did.
And while you were on scene or at the incident location that day with Dr. Tormos, did you show her the hose that had been taken into evidence?
Yes, I brought the hose down in my custody and presented it to Dr. Tormos.
Okay. By the court's indulgence. People giving up on the gloves with the hose. If I may just approach the witness. Thank you. And Agent Nelson, if you'd like some gloves, we're happy to give them to you. I think they're right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm showing you States 54. If you will look in there and let the jury know if that's the same hose that you did provide to Dr. Tormos while you were on the incident location.
It is.
Okay. And if you need to pull it out more, feel free, but are there, there's some sort of mark on the hose that would indicate measurements that you or one of the team put on there?
Do not. Oh, there it is. Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind, just hold that up a little bit for the jury to see. And
I apologize.
that's hard. What is that your finger is resting on there?
So this is something that we have with our unit. It's called scaling tape. We'll use it for showing measurements of things. And as I was showing this to Dr. Tormos, she was curious what the width was of the hose. So we placed this on there for representation.
All right, thank you. And that is the same hose that was taken into evidence from Berkeley County?
It is.
Okay. Give you a minute to put that up. And permission to approach, Your Honor. Agent Nelson, just for clarity purposes, I'm showing you states 86, 7, 8, 9, 90, 91, and 92, which have been admitted. And if you'll just tell us briefly what type of photos those are.
These are photographs of the victim from autopsy.
Okay. And did you review those prior to showing the host to Dr. Tormos?
I did.
Okay. And permission to approach again, Your Honor. Showing states 85. What is this?
This is a photograph of a wallet with the driver's license of the victim.
And was that a photo that you reviewed?
Yes, it was in the.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. It was in the Berkeley crime scene photographs
Okay.
from the original night of the incident.
And I believe 85 has been admitted without objection, Your Honor. Permission to publish?
Yes, ma'am.
And if we can just show the jury. So this was the wallet with the victim's driver's license on scene that night?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then, just so we're clear here, I'm referencing States 93, which has also been admitted. Permission to publish, Your Honor. Thank you. And Agent Quam, what is this? Excuse me, Nelson, what are we showing here?
This is a photograph of the hose the day that we responded out to the incident location after the fact. This was April 2016, and that is with the scale tape that was on the hose still. And it's a photograph of that.
And is that the same holding the hose?
It is.
Okay. Thank the court's indulgence. I have misplaced one photo. There. Okay, and States 94, permission to publish, Your Honor. And what do we show in this picture, Agent Nelson?
That's another photograph of the hose, an overall photograph from the April 2016 location or visit to the incident location.
So you took the hose to the location and got it
Yes.
out of this vehicle to show Dr. Tormos?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Beg the court's indulgence.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all the questions on direct, Your Honor.
Any questions for the witness?
One moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Morning.
Good morning.
Mrs. Nelson.
Yes, sir.
You work up in Columbia,
I do.
but you travel throughout the state.
Yes.
And SLED, they were talking the other day about SLED, there are agents and then there are forensic people who specialize in certain areas.
That's correct.
And you're one of those, I guess, special areas.
Yes, I was in crime scene and transferred to the behavioral science unit back in.
So, and as a result of what you do, you provide reports.
Correct.
And that is to document, for your benefit, memory of what you did and how you did it and who was there and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
Now, when did you first become involved with the investigation of this case?
October of 2015.
And SLED has a crime scene recovery unit. CSR, is that what you call it, crime scene recovery?
Reconstruction?
Was there a recovery too? So, I mean, could you send people out to a scene at the time the scene is developed to collect evidence?
You mean like the initial incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And do your colleagues do that on a regular basis?
They do.
And any law enforcement agency within the state can ask for your assistance,
They can.
and often do.
Yes.
And when you do that, you go out at a fresh scene and you look based on your training for particular evidence.
That's correct.
so that if there, let's say there was a scene, it was questionable, there was blood on, say, a concrete block, would that be important?
That would be.
A concrete block that was in proximity to the knees of the person who had been found there.
Yes.
And with that blood, you could do an analysis to determine whose blood it was.
Yes, it would have been sent to the DNA department to determine that.
And that doesn't have to be done just immediately then, but it could be collected at that time would be best, but even a day or two later, if it had been undisturbed, could be collected and analyzed.
Yes.
If there was a telephone that belonged to one of the persons who was present at the scene, and it looked like it had a broken, what do you call it, on the front of the phone?
Screen?
Screen. Would that be important?
Yes, for documentation.
And could you examine the cracks in the screen to determine whether it was freshly broken or whether there was any trace evidence within the cracks of the screen that might be pertinent to the investigation?
I'd have to ask one of our trace analysts who's more specialized in that, but I'm sure that they could come up with an answer.
But as a specialist in collecting evidence, that's what you do, right?
Yes.
Certainly you would collect that evidence.
Yes.
And then you would send it to maybe a different department for further analysis.
Yes.
Supposing you thought there might be blood on that instrument, that iPhone or whatever, would that be significant to you?
Yes.
Would you collect it?
Yes.
Would you then have it examined?
I would.
Supposing there was a pair of broken glasses there, would you collect that?
Yes.
And would you look at it to see whether it was a freshly pair of broken glasses, whether there were there's other evidence on the glass itself of how long it may have been broken, whether it was a transfer or what? I mean, you'd examine it, correct?
Correct.
For whatever evidence value it might have.
Yes.
And then if there were, I don't know, let's say, did you say something about the hose? The hose you had?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually collect that hose?
I did not.
That hose had been collected on May 20th? And
Yeah.
sent up the sled?
Yes.
And so when it got up the sled, did you examine it, or did somebody up there examine it at your direction?
Well, when we got involved, the sled or the hose had not been processed yet. So in March of 2016, I believe serology processed the hose, which serology would have taken the swabs from the hose, and I was present during that at the sled forensic lab.
Did you say March of what year?
2016.
So from May until March, it had been sitting in somebody's brown paper bag?
Yeah, I'm not sure where exactly the location of it was, but
Did you ever get to see more of the hose than what has presented, what you just showed the jury? Did you see any other aspects of the hose?
well, when we responded in April of 2016, there was still a hose that was black in color with a yellow stripe on the hanger there that had 2 cuts. So we collected that day.
And when you say the hanger, you mean where the hose was stored
At the building.
and it had been undisturbed until what? When was that you were there?
April of 2016.
So for 11 months, nobody messed with it.
I can't say that.
What was the length of the hose that was remaining there at the time you arrived on scene?
I do not know the length.
And did any exemplars, were there any exemplars taken from the hose that remained on the hose storage thing?
No, there was no processing requested on it.
And probably at that time it would have been a little late to do any processing for DNA or for hair samples or anything of that type.
It's possible because it's out in the weather elements.
Do you remember seeing the concrete block there when you were there?
I do.
And it was immediately adjacent to where the young woman was found?
Yes.
In fact, in the pictures of her body, you can see the concrete block.
You can.
And do you recall walking around the area?
In April?
Yes.
Yes.
This was April of 2016, and you were there with this gentleman here?
Yes, sir.
And then you brought a bunch, or not, excuse me, you brought other colleagues from Columbia with you?
Yes, sir.
How many colleagues did you
2.
bring? And then along with the 2 colleagues and the agent, was anybody else there?
There was other regional agents there when we first arrived, as well as Dr. Tormos and I think a couple personnel from the coroner's office, as well as maybe Berkeley County Sheriff's Department.
So it wasn't just the agent and Dr. Tormos, there were maybe 10 law enforcement agents there.
I say that's a fair number.
And to take pictures and to do an analysis and whatnot.
Well, we were taking the photographs. When we arrived, we were executing the search warrant, so they all assisted in conducting a protective sweep of the building to see if anybody was inside.
Right. Did you notice that there was a back gate to the property?
I don't recall that.
Did you walk around all over the property?
I did.
Were there portions of the property that were hidden from the... Well, you were there at what time of day?
May I refer to my notes?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just looking for an approximate. There's no trick questions.
I think approximately in the morning to early afternoon.
Maybe several hours.
Yes.
How many cars do you think passed by while you were there?
Many. It's a busy road.
Hundreds?
Approximately.
And the people who passed by on the highway, could they see you there?
Yes.
You didn't have blue lights on or anything like that.
No.
The people, you saw them, they saw you.
I'm sure they saw a lot of vehicles.
And the area where the young woman was found, how is that in terms of being able to see her from the highway?
It's within view.
And the car that was parked there, how far away was that from the highway?
The night of the incident, or
What, the photographs that you've seen where you were told, or whatever judgment you can use to say approximately how far away from the highway was that vehicle?
can't remember approximately how far away the vehicle was, but when we did the measurements the day of, I think it was approximately 90 feet from the fence to the road.
So anybody passing by there could have full view of what was going on.
Yes.
And in fact, not just those who were passing by, but a quarter mile up the road, because the way the curvature of the road is, they could see what was going on.
Yes.
But if the woman had been found any place on the rear part of the property, or in the sheds, or... Did you see the sheds when you were there?
Yes. To the right.
Boats were stored in there?
There was a lot of items within the sheds.
Do you recall hoses there?
I do not.
Did you look for hoses there?
We did not.
Did you look for hoses on the back of the property?
We did not.
Did you look for any ligature instruments around the property at all?
We did not.
Now, the collection that you did at that time was to preserve evidence that could help this jury decide whatever they need to decide. Is that correct? The intent is to decide things
Correct.
by the jury. So let's go over some of the things that are preserved. When a body is found, they put bags on the body?
It depends on the unit. That's one policy that a unit may do.
And if they do that, why did they do that?
They do that to preserve the hands and the fingernails, depending on the type of wound that the victim received. It could be for gunshot residue, fingernail scrapings, collect any trace evidence that may be on the victim's hands.
And do you know whether that was done in this case or not?
I do not recall if her hands were bagged.
But if they had been, the reason for that would be to preserve trace evidence that would be submitted to your colleagues in Columbia.
Yes.
Do you know whether that was done?
I believe fingernail scrapings were submitted to the lab.
And but you don't follow up on that? Somebody else would have the knowledge of that?
Yes, that would be the DNA report.
And the hose that was sent up there, or do you know anything about that?
Well, it was processed for DNA, and I believe 3 swabs were taken from it, and then, well, serology would have collected those 3 swabs. Then they're submitted to DNA to see if there's a profile.
And then Dr. Tormos would have submitted known exemplars from Ms. Colucci.
Yes, well, a known standard would have been collected at autopsy.
And a known standard would have been collected from Mr. Colucci.
Yes.
And SLED had the ability to compare whatever was found.
Yes.
Now, this has been introduced as State's Exhibit 55, and it's in a bag.
Okay.
Is that usually how things are transferred? They wrap them up and put them in a bag, seal them, tape them, so that they can't be disturbed?
Yeah, depending on the item of evidence.
And then you all have your own separate language that use codes and whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what the code on that says outside.
There's evidence processing, DNA touch, crime scene, bloodstain pattern analysis / crime scene reconstruction, and then hold SLED low country, Special Agent Owen.
Okay, so that's this gentleman right here.
Yes, sir.
And those are the tests that were requested by somebody to be performed.
Yes.
And what would the purpose of those tests be? Why would you want DNA and blood exemplars and that sort of thing?
DNA touch, we weren't sure what the ligature was. Dr. Tormo said that the hose was not the ligature, so potentially we looked at maybe the sunglasses.
Okay. When we say touch, if I put my hand down here in the jury box and I touched it, would I leave anything other than my fingerprints?
You could leave touch DNA.
So touch DNA means anything that I touch, your colleagues can examine it to see whether or not I touched it. If I said I touched it and I didn't, you'd be able to say, you're saying you touched it, but there's no evidence that you did.
There's factors that are contributed to touch DNA, and that's not my area of expertise. They'd be better to explain those factors.
But that is the intent, right?
Yes.
And in order to follow through on the intent, there has to be an examination.
Yes.
And you specialize in scientific principles so that you can redo that test. Right? That's the whole scientific method. It follows a procedure.
Yes.
You can look at the procedure, the results, and then you can do it again,
Yes.
providing there's sufficient evidence.
Yes.
So the hose somebody asked to do all that type of analysis.
Yes, sir.
The sunglasses, they asked to do that type of analysis.
Yes, sir.
A fingernail, they asked to do that analysis.
Yes.
The fingernails of the young woman who died, under her fingernails, they asked to do that analysis.
Yes.
The gentleman who was at the scene, Mr. Colucci, they asked to do that analysis.
Well, they would have collected a buccal swab, I believe, from him.
Do you know whether or not they collected any fingernail clippings from Mr. Colucci?
They did not.
Do you know whether there was any fingerprinting of the automobile that you saw that day?
No.
Do you know whether there was any collection of DNA from that automobile that day?
No.
Do you know whether there was any examination to see if there had been a fight or some sort of disturbance in that vehicle that day?
No, other than the documentation.
Now, you're trained as a criminal expert in crime scene.
Yes.
If you went to a vehicle that was involved, say the vehicle in this case, what would you look for?
I would look for, well, in this case, photography and documentation. If you're looking for DNA evidence specifically, I'd be looking for blood, just because of the type of injury on the victim. We don't have a gunshot wound or it's a stabbing, but and in terms of doing latent prints and DNA, if you get latent prints and they're identified to the victim and to the suspect while they both had access to the vehicle. Same with DNA being present in the vehicle.
Let me ask a more precise question. I apologize. If you were a crime scene person looking to see if there had been a disturbance or a fight in the vehicle, what would you be looking for?
It to be in disarray, things to be out of order, potentially, depending on what the condition of the vehicle is. Everybody keeps their vehicle different. Some people keep their vehicles really messy, some keep it very clean, so it might stand out a little bit more, and then document that with photographs.
Supposing somebody didn't take their vehicle to the car wash and never cleaned the inside of it, and there were cigarette ashes and there was dust all over the vehicle, would that have meaning to you?
Depends on, I guess, the lifestyle of the person.
No, in terms of a disturbance, if you got a vehicle and it was full of dust and debris and cigarette ashes, and there were no disturbance of that dust or the ashes, would that be meaningful to you?
Yes, excuse me, yes.
If there were Coca-Cola cans in the vehicle, in the front seat, perhaps in between where the two people sat, and maybe one in a cup holder on the side, would that be meaningful to you to see whether or not there had been a disturbance in the vehicle?
Yes, depending on the situation.
If the rear view mirror had not been disturbed or been out of shape or whatnot, would that be meaningful to you?
Yes.
When you were at this location, had it been vacated for some time, do you know?
No.
So it was still ongoing?
Yes.
And the hose that was still there at the time you were there, and about a year later, whatever that time was, did the nose have a nozzle on it?
No, it did not.
And do you know where that hose had been used?
I do not know.
And do you know whether on May 20th of 2015, the hose, where that was? You said it was on a fence?
Part of the hose was attached to the wall, and then some of the hose was on the fence.
And that hose had an ending on it with a nozzle? You remember the nozzle?
Yes, sir.
Did anybody examine the nozzle?
No, they did not.
Anybody examine whether there were DNA, fingerprints, or anything on the nozzle?
No, they did not.
Anybody look at the nozzle at that time or since that time to see maybe if there was a tool mark on it?
No, they did not.
Tell the jurors, if you will, what a tool mark is.
Well, tool mark, that would be submitted to our firearms department for comparison, but tool marks, when I think about tool marks or seeing tool marks, you see that in break-ins. If, for example, if somebody uses a crowbar and they open the door, it might leave some sort of impression. That would be collected to be submitted. Screwdrivers.
Would you look for a metal on metal mark? Let's say that this, we don't know, but let's say that this had been hooked on a fence and there was pressure to take it off. Would it leave a mark on the fence and on the nozzle?
I'm not sure.
And when you're not sure, what do you have to do?
I'd call somebody from our firearms department.
And look at it.
Yes.
And you look at the fence.
Yes.
And you look to see whether the marks, if there were marks, could be compared to each other.
Yes.
Was that done?
No, it was not.
So we don't know where the hose that was found under her body had been when she got to that incident site.
That's correct.
But we do know that around the hose was her DNA and her hair.
Yes.
And we do know that there was no DNA from Mr. Colucci.
Yes.
And we do know that there wasn't any other trace evidence or transfer of touch.
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis.
Speculation outside her scope of knowledge. She didn't actually perform the test.
No speaking objection.
That's my
The
apology.
objection is sustained. Foundation speculation.
So if these instruments, hose and whatnot, have been examined, there'd be a report of that. that you wouldn't have done that report, but one of your colleagues at SLED would have done that report.
That's correct.
Beg the court's indulgence for a moment, please. Mr. Reynolds, thank you very much. And answer any questions. Prosecutor.
Okay.
Can you read your address?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Agent Nelson, after taking a look at the incident location, did you submit the victim's dress for a trace evidence analysis?
I contacted the lieutenant for the trace department to request paint analysis to be conducted on the dress.
Okay, and why did you do that?
There was information that the victim had possibly went in between the fence and the building to get to the other side, so thought possibly there might be trace evidence on her dress.
Okay. And what time of day was it again that you were actually viewing the incident location?
Morning to afternoon.
Okay.
We were there about all day.
Okay. And you had taken the hose and it had been in that packaging before you took
Yes.
it? Was any of the jewelry found on the victim processed for DNA? Submitted to your recollection?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. You certainly didn't do it.
I did not.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any objection to the witness being excused from the state?
May I ask one or two questions?
Any exception from the state?
No, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Did I just hear that after you got to the incident site, you asked for clothing to be examined?
Well, not the day of, but yes, it was done after we went to the initial incident location.
The dress that was worn by Ms. Colucci that night,
Yes.
to see if there was a transfer of paint from the wall, I guess?
Yes.
And that was done?
Yes.
And in order to do that, had you taken traces from the wall?
No, after talking to the lieutenant, we had left the location, and she said that if they developed anything, then we would have to go back out and get known standards from the building.
So they were going to compare something on the dress to paint on the wall, but there was no paint from the wall taken to compare to.
No.
How is that meaningful?
Well, we had already left the incident location.
Oh,
Yes.
and gone back to Columbia.
Yes.
And the incident site was 90 miles away. Now, how about, did you notice the mud on the shoes?
Yes.
And was that mud compared to the mud on the location where she was found?
Your Honor, objection outside the scope of redirect.
Sustained.
Your Honor, she did talk about
I did not
clothing.
ask for argument. The objection is sustained.
Do you know who William Schrock is?
I do not.
You know whether SLED uses him as a soil analysis?
I do not.
No further questions.
Any further questions from the state?
No, Your Honor.
Any objection to the witness being excused from the state?
No, Your Honor.
From the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Ma'am, you.
Thank you.
Dorothy Montijo, Montijo.
You may proceed.
J.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Ms. Montijo. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Montijo, where do you live? In Monk's Corner, all right. And do you work?
Yes, I do.
What do you do?
I'm an accounting manager.
And how long have you been an accounting manager?
Probably about, in this particular place, 8 years, but about 28 years.
All right. And did you know Sara Colucci?
Yes.
All right. Do you know her, at the time, her husband, Michael Colucci?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you know them?
They were my next door neighbors.
So back in, well, how long were they your next door neighbors?
We moved, let me see, I moved in 2007, and Sarah and Bishop moved in later in the fall of 2007, I believe.
Okay, so you mentioned Bishop. Who's Bishop?
Sarah's daughter.
And when did they move in next to you?
I'm thinking it was near the end, like the fall of 2007.
So roughly sometime in 2007?
Yeah, the end of 2007.
And did Michael later come to live with them?
Yes.
Okay. So when you met Sarah, she was not married to Michael?
No.
Okay. Do you recall when they got married, approximately?
I think in 2011, I think they got married in June.
Okay. And did Michael have a daughter prior to the marriage?
Yes.
Okay. And how would you describe your relationship with that family?
They were neighbors. We were friendly. You know, we needed anything, we could go next door and borrow it, or just
Okay. So a friendly neighbor type
Just-
relation?
yes.
Okay. And specifically with Sarah, how is your relationship with Sarah?
Fun. I had a lot of fun with Sarah.
Okay.
She was close to my daughter's age, but we had a lot of fun. We would get together here and there and have a glass of wine, and yeah.
Okay. So how would you describe Sarah's personality?
Extremely outgoing, very talented, fantastic mother, very creative. She could create anything. I mean, she was quick-witted, just great person.
And how would you describe her marriage to Michael Colucci when they first got married?
Oh,
To your
heaven.
observation.
Heaven. Yeah, I did. Yeah,
She seemed happy?
very.
Okay. So how often would you actually interact with Sarah or Michael Colucci?
I mean, we would see them maybe daily for a while and say hi, in the driveways, or cutting lawn or edging. And Michael would frequently edge our lawn, and and then maybe we wouldn't see them for a month because of everybody's schedules. So, sometimes we'd see them quite often, and we wouldn't see them at all.
Okay.
So,
And did both of the girls live with Michael and Sarah?
yes.
All right. And how were the, well, let me just back up for a second. So you said the marriage looked like heaven at first. Is that
Yes.
accurate? Okay. Was there a time that, based on your perception, that changed?
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that for the jury, please?
It's probably maybe the last year or two before Sarah's death that I noticed a change in just different things that Sarah would mention to me that I wasn't used to hearing from her.
Okay, and without saying what she said, could you just tell a little more about what you observed that changed, or what was brought to your attention?
Just, I guess I didn't see them together as a family as much as I had seen them before. I mean, like we would get together, say like 4th of July, for example. Michael would go out and get all these fireworks, and we'd sit at the end, and across the street he would set them off. We'd all sit together and watch them with the kids, or the kids had like little dune buggy things, and we'd watch them. Or the kids would put on a show across the street, and we'd put our chairs down the street. I mean, just real family oriented, a lot of love.
Right.
And I just didn't see much of that anymore. It was just different. It was different.
Okay. Did you observe any changes in the way the girls were cared for?
No.
Okay. Is it fair to say you just didn't see the girls as much?
I didn't see the girls as much, and Sarah would say that they were at her mom and dad's for the weekend or whatever.
Okay. Did you perceive any financial troubles?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Could you tell the jury about that?
Yes, I mean, Sarah would mention that, well, the girls are over at her mom's for the weekend because they don't have any electric. The electric was turned off, or they didn't have any water, or let's see, her car was broken down. She didn't have her car. It wasn't there.
How about homeowners?
Comments like that.
Do you believe they were current on their homeowners fees?
She never told me whether they were or they weren't. I don't know.
Sure. Do you have any knowledge about what Sarah did for work when you first met her?
I think yes, I think they had a business, an aluminum business. She and her deceased husband, I know that she worked that for a while after, and then I think she touched on real estate a little bit, and then she got into the jewelry business with Michael.
Okay. Do you know much about what she did in the jewelry business with Michael?
The last time I saw her, which was the Friday before,
Sure.
then she stopped over to see my mom. She would do that. I have an old. My mother's 98 years old, so, and she liked her. She liked my mom. So she would pop over every once in a while to see her. And that Friday evening, she was on her way to the store to do payroll, she said.
Okay.
So I guess that's what she was doing.
Do you know if she spent a lot of time at the jewelry store, at the business?
I think at one time she spent a lot of time at the store. Both of them did. And then lately it didn't seem like they did, but
What do you mean by that?
It didn't look like anybody was going to work. But I don't know if they were or they weren't, because, I mean, I was, I was at work myself, but I mean, and just different comments that Sarah would say to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So prior to Sarah's death, did y'all have any plans around that time period with each other?
Yeah, we actually did. My daughter's birthday's in May, and her husband and I both wanted to get her, she wanted some black diamond earrings and the necklace, I don't know, something with the black diamonds. And so I asked Sarah about it, and she said, oh yeah, she had some great ideas, and she was going to pull some stuff together and show me. And that was a conversation we had. And then the day before she died, we had a conversation, which she called me from the warehouse, and just offered space that Michael and her, they had the warehouse and it had a lot of extra room, and if Jim and I needed to store anything for free, please feel free to let them know. And that was the conversation I had with her the day before.
Okay, so specifically, had you made any weekend plans for that weekend?
No, she was going to stop over for a glass of wine, but
Okay.
It didn't happen.
All right. Were you surprised to learn of Sarah's death?
Yeah. Yes.
And after her death, did you see Michael?
Yes.
Did he ever tell you what happened to Sarah?
Yes. Well, yes.
Okay. What did he tell you?
Oh, geez. He told me that it was an anniversary of her deceased husband's death, and every year that they would go to Magnolia Cemetery and place flowers, and that they were going to do that they did that, and they had to go to, I think they went to an attorney's, something regarding Northwoods Academy, and then they went out for a drink, and then they were going by the warehouse, and Sarah said she had to go to the bathroom, and so Michael pulled in and that she went behind the fence and he stayed in the car, and then he said the next thing he knew, he looked up and he just see the top of her head, and that he got out and he tried to resuscitate her.
Okay. So, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you
No.
say what he told you is that he stayed in the car? Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And there was some noise, so I just want to make sure I heard. Hit the top of her head. Is that what you recall him saying?
He
Sustained.
Okay.
he saw.
Wait, ma'am, stop.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Rephrase the question.
Yes, ma'am. Would you just repeat what he told you about how she was at the warehouse?
That when he was still in the car, and I guess he said he looked and he could see the top of her head.
See the top of her head. Okay. With the coughing, I couldn't hear, and I just wanted clarity. Thank you. So he could see the top of her head. Okay. What else did he say?
That's all. He got out and he tried to resuscitate her.
Okay. Do you remember him telling you anything else?
Yes, and he said that she had strangled herself with the hose. I don't know whether he said hung herself or strangled, or something like that with the hose, because I just kept saying, how. That's what he told me.
Okay. So was it your understanding from him that she had done it to herself?
Yes.
Did you understand it to be intentionally or accidentally?
Geez, I can't answer that. I don't.
That's fair. If you don't remember this.
I have my own opinion, but I don't remember.
Okay. Just what you understood him to tell you. Do you recall if he said accident or on purpose?
I don't remember.
Do you believe she would have done it on purpose?
No.
Sustained bleeding.
At the time of her death, how would you describe Sarah's personality?
Like I said, I talked to her the day before, and she sounded fine, normal.
What does that mean? How was she when she was fine
Just,
and normal?
Happy, talkative, just. And when I saw her on Friday, she was upbeat the Friday before.
Thank you. Nothing further on direct, Your Honor.
You may proceed. Yes, sir, you may proceed.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Andy Savage. I represent your former neighbor. These are difficult things to talk about, difficult environment, and you're obviously very upset about what's happened over the past 3 years.
Yes.
The Coluccis were good neighbors? Good neighbors?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're asking me?
Michael would mow your lawn, do the edging, that sort of thing? Mm-hmm. And you and your husband, they would visit with you and socialize with you and have drinks with you?
Here and there, yes.
Did you ever see Sara with any visible signs of injury of domestic violence?
No.
Did you ever have any report from Sara that her husband struck her?
No.
Did you ever hear them argue?
Yes.
But you've given a statement already that you didn't hear them argue.
Yes, well, Sarah said to me, "I'm sorry if it got loud last night. Just, Michael lied to me and I was upset." And she asked me if I heard anything, and I said, "Oh, no, yeah."
So you'd never heard them argue? Sarah might have said something to you about an argument. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you knew that Sarah had some issues with depression.
I had heard that she did.
From Sarah.
Yes.
That she got depressed every year at the time of her second husband's death.
I don't know how to answer that, because in the beginning, the first few years, yes, she would talk about it, but not like after she married Michael. It didn't seem to matter as much anymore to her.
You were aware,
I mean, she didn't mention it to me like she did previously.
were you aware that she wanted to be buried with her second husband?
No.
Were you aware that she would constantly visit Magnolia Cemetery?
Once a year is all that I knew. I didn't know any more than that.
And what time of year would that be?
Around the time of his death, which was May, actually May 18th, I think, was probably the date.
And do you remember the anniversary date of her marriage to her second husband?
It was in June. It was right by my birthday weekend, so I don't know, 12. I don't know.
Maybe it was May 20th, the day that she died? You didn't know that?
No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I think it meant Michael. Her first husband? No.
Her second husband
Her second husband.
died in Horry County, correct?
That was her second husband?
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
But she was your close friend.
Yeah, but I didn't know that.
And this child, what was Michael's child's name?
Milan,
And did Michael have sole custody of that child?
as far as I know, yes.
That child had a mother,
Yes.
but Michael had sole custody.
Yes.
And the interaction that Michael had with his daughter, did he adopt Sarah's child from the husband who was deceased?
Yes.
In that adoption process, were you asked about the relationship in order to have the adoption approved by the court?
No.
If you had been, would you have given him high marks?
Yes.
And you're aware that when the adoptions go through, that there's an investigation, a social...
Objection,
Basis,
speculation.
sustained and foundation.
Are you aware of an adoption process, how that works?
No, I'm not.
But you are aware that he adopted Sarah's daughter,
Yes.
and that he had sole custody of his own daughter,
Yes.
and that he used to participate in putting up fireworks and displays in the neighborhood, and
Yes.
that he mowed your lawn.
Yes, it was.
Now, you said that they lost, did you say electricity and water? Were you in their house and observed that?
No. Sarah would mention it to me outside, like in the driveway, if I'm getting ready to go to work or something, and she'd come over and she would just mention she was angry.
She was upset. Did she have any life insurance?
We never talked about that.
And did you know that Michael had changed his business from jewelry? He was involved in development of properties and real estate?
I did know that Michael had property that he was trying to sell, only because of a statement that Sarah told me, because she wanted him to be selling the jewelry and stop worrying about the property.
She wasn't pleased with his change in business from the jewelry business to real estate?
Well, I guess I only heard about one, I don't even remember where it was now, but there was one piece of land, I guess, that he was trying to sell, and she wanted him to sell jewelry.
Were you aware that she loved him?
Yes, she did.
And even when she would tell you that she was frustrated with him and, you know, I'm tired of what he's doing and, you know, someday I'm going to get a divorce from him, then she would say what their family vacation plans were the next breath?
Not in the last year or so.
You weren't aware of that?
I wasn't.
And you were aware that when she would complain about him, she would always say she loved him?
I don't know if those words came out of her mouth, but I know Sarah. I know Sarah loved. I know she loved Michael.
You're aware, or would you not be aware, there weren't any third parties involved in their relationship?
Not as far as I know.
Did she actually on occasion talk to you about getting divorced?
She did. A couple times she made a comment. Excuse me, the one time was they had these pedigree cats, a real expensive breed of cat, and they had some kittens, and I know she was very upset because one of them had gotten out and got run over, and then another one got out. Anyway, I ended up finding the kitten and brought it to her, and she said, you just saved me from going downtown and divorcing Michael because he's irresponsible and he needs to, you know, just,
She had
that was one thing.
an affinity for $2,000 kittens. Himalayans, what do you call those things?
Could have been Himalayas, I can't
And those were
remember.
her cats. And Michael left the door open. And the cat got out and got killed. And another cat got out and you found it in the gutter or found it in the drainage or someplace.
Found her under my deck.
And she was angry. And then in the next conversation told you that they were going on a family vacation. That's the statement you gave to the police.
Did I? I forgot.
Thank you.
Any reason?
That's fine.
You may proceed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Montijo, do you recall whether Sarah was excited about anything coming up right before her death?
Yes, a few things.
The cross-examination.
Please repeat the question.
Was she excited about anything right before her death?
I'm giving a little attitude overall.
Yes. She was very excited about a few things, actually. One was she needed to take photographs of Bishop for an event at Northwoods Academy where she was moving up, I think from 5th to 6th grade or 4th to 5th, I forget which that is now. But so she was real excited about that. She took pictures of her down at the beach and like a mermaid thing, and she pulled some baby pictures of her so that they could show up on the screen at the school. And she was excited about her dress that she had for her to wear, and the whole event. I mean, she was looking forward to it.
And you knew that she loved Michael, with Mr. Savage discussed with you, and did she love Bishop?
Yes.
And did she love Michael's daughter?
Yes.
Okay. When was the adoption of Bishop, do you know?
Oh gosh, no.
Let me ask it a little bit different. Do you remember if it was towards the beginning of the marriage or towards the end of the marriage?
I'm thinking it was probably right in the middle. They were married maybe 4 years or something. And I remember that, and I remember them getting all baptized together as a family thing. That was about 2 years before. I think.
Okay. And I believe Mr. Savage asked you about if you had witnessed a fight or heard a fight.
Yeah.
Who did you hear most in that fight?
Sarah.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any objection to the witness being excused from the state?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
From the defense?
No, ma'am.
You're excused, ma'am.
Thank you.